This week on Dig Me Out. With your hosts, Jason Zia and Tim Minichi.
Jay, we're back again with another episode thanks to our Dig Me Out Union on Patreon. You can help us make the next episode happen by joining us at dmounion.com or digmeoutunion.com. Speaking of actually this man predates the union.
It does.
This is like before they formed SHIELD, Peggy Carter and the Howling Commandos were operating completely independent before that.
What the hell you're talking about?
Yes. I just watched Captain America Winter Soldier, so SHIELD is on my mind. He's been here since the very first USB crossed the ocean, full of all sorts of wonderful Australian music that we had not heard, including, well, no, I don't think it was including this band. I think this was a new addition to your Australian cachet of music. Speaking, of course, of Gavin Reed, welcome back, Gavin.
Yeah, thanks. I was wondering whether that was on the USB, but when you said you couldn't find it anywhere on streaming, I assumed it wasn't. I just had a massive dig for the CD, and I can't find that either. So,
well, you could have, you showed us you can show us everybody now. You have a 12-inch of the band.
Yep, there we go.
That you could have ripped that for us, Don't you have a vinyl to digital conversion that you could hook this up so we could hear that?
Yeah, of course I do. But I like you to dig.
Gotcha. Tell everyone the album you have selected for this episode.
Okay, this episode, chosen the band Defryme and their album Purekiller. So I'm going to assume, aside from this discussion, nobody's heard of this band.
Nope.
And from what I'm reading, I've got an uphill battle to sell it to anybody.
I Googled, and there's very little on the internet about this band. There is on Rate Your Music. There's one review of this band. There are, you go to like Amazon and see people who purchased it in, 1999. But it's not on any streaming services. You can listen to the album on, or watch it on YouTube. And there's a SoundCloud page for the band.
Oh my!
They are actually currently active. Lead singer of the band, Quinn Gardner Kane. Kevin, you mentioned it. He's basically the only person left from the original band. And
I think with their stuff they just released, I think he got rid of the last non-original person in the last month or so.
Yeah, I saw on the Facebook page he welcomed 2 new members. I like it when bands do that, like they're introducing new members of like a catering team or something, or people working at an office. Like, hey, welcome our 2 new office members. They'll be fulfilling your orders. It's like, so Defryme from Melbourne,
Yep.
Formed in 89. And this album, which is at the moment their only album, but if you go to the Facebook page, they tease new music, new singles, and possibly a new album this year. So
there's definitely one single. So
29 years later, you might get a new Defryme album. But the band was not inactive the entire time. So the album Purekiller came out 1993. There were a couple of singles released, and then so that was the Australian release. It actually was re-released by BMG Unity in 1994. I don't know, or maybe that was the album and then the single was released. But I don't know what about the US release, if it got one or not. I don't think so. Let me take a look. No, only got an Australian release. So that's not a second album release. Did not get re-released. However, so the band broke up in the mid 90s after a couple of charting singles from this record. Then they got back together in 2014 and put out a new single. You can check it out on iTunes and stuff. And actually, they reformed in 2010. That was when the new single came out called Sup. And then they put another single in 2014 called Audrey. And there you go. Not a lot about this band because there's one album and everybody's gone except for one guy.
There is a single on streaming that came out in 2021.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's the new one.
Okay.
I do the Snake. Is that what you're talking about?
Yep.
Yeah. And I can give you a bit more background than that if you'd like.
Okay, yeah, do it, please.
All right. So they actually formed in a town called Frankston, which is a sort of bayside town in about 40 k's out of Melbourne. In '89, it would have been regarded as a very, very rough place to live. Nowadays, people have realised that it's actually on the water and it's become quite gentrified. So they formed this band in '89. They didn't have a name, but their concept was playing a mix of NWA and Living Colour. That's what they were aiming at. And so the original music and the original concept was far more rap heavy, which with Melbourne audiences in 1989 felt very flat. And so they then moved towards the more, funk, I'll just say it because everyone's going to say it, Faith No More, Chili Peppers sort of sound. They had no name for quite a while, so they decided to choose between the song titles, or two of their song titles. They only had two songs at the time for that version of the band. When one was called Defryme, the other one was called Mindfuck. So the band got called Defryme, which is a good decision. Also, post this album, where they dropped off the radar for the first time, my belief, and I've tried to confirm this, but no, I'm operating from memory, is that Quinn moved more towards like an electronic / dance sound.
Of course.
That's what he was then pursuing. Yeah. Because this album actually did okay here. They had some profile. They'd sell out live shows. So I think that's sort of the direction he wanted to move in, and I don't even know what the name of whatever he came up with. I honestly think he went DJing, and I'm going to assume there's ecstasy involved. Yeah, that's what I think happened. So let's run with that.
Okay. Well, you mentioned your concerns about people's feedback. We did get some feedback over on our Patreon page, along with the votes, which we'll give away at the end, how the poll turned out. But there were some concerns. There was some constructive criticisms leveled at the band. Phil Fleming said, "To these ears, the ambition is very clear. These songs are performed well. The songs are just not very good." So it's a compliment with a criticism. In the context of the time it was released, they wanted to be the next Faith No More. Yep, we talked about that. The record ended up being C-grade extreme songs minus the guitar wankery, with a B-grade Anthony Kiedis impression on vocals, the very definition of a swing and a miss. To which Richard Waterman said, "Phil, I wish you would just say how you really feel."
He gave it a fair what works, what doesn't work.
Yeah. Jason Pants.
I got to jump in on the B-grade Kiedis thing, though. I mean, Quinn is a much better singer than Kiedis. So.
Yeah, I don't think that anybody should look at Anthony Kiedis and go, "Well, he's the pinnacle of that style."
Yeah.
Like,
otherwise, I'm okay with that, but that's not okay.
I can't find anybody who can stand up to Anthony Kiedis as a vocalist. Like, what? Jason Pan said, "I'm from Melbourne and have honestly never heard of this band in my life. Must have completely disappeared by 95 when I started putting Triple J on." That could be possible.
Yep.
Keith Badge said that cover of Mama Said You Knock You Out is so bad their mamas should have knocked them out. The rest is sort of Faith No More, sort of Red Hot Chili Peppers, sort of Neverland, sort of Animal Bag, sort of I'm Mother Earth, Circa Dig, and sort of Works, but not really. It's very of its time EP. I like the Neverland and Animal Bag references. Not bands that get mentioned often with regards to bands that we're talking about. But I think in this case, that's probably fair. So, Jay, tell me one thing you liked about Purekiller by Defryme.
The performances are pretty well done here. They're using, not the most amazing guitar riffs in the history of guitar playing, but they play them really well together. I think there's a really tight feel between the guitar player, the bass, and the drums. Even when they get funky, which isn't my favorite style of rock, they pull it off well just because they're playing so tight. They also do quite a bit with dynamics. So again, I think Brass Monkey's a good example, maybe even Purekiller, where they're using starts and stops, bringing guitars in and out, accenting things in ways that just keep it interesting. When you really analyze what they're playing, there's not a whole lot of complexity there, but it's presented in a way, that keeps things moving, keeps momentum, keeps you interested. There's also some really interesting like flourishes on here, use of keyboards. There's like a really strange but cool harmonic or octave effect on the song Gunn. Again, takes a fairly pedestrian riff, but because it's played with this weird octave effect, it just turns into this kind of noisy freak out. There's little the last track, Sweeter Shelter, has like a sitar effect of some kind or sitar mixed in. There's some percussion here and there. So there's these little flourishes that I think just add overall to the texture. It helps things get a little bit bigger and a bit more experimental. And then I kind of like some of the vocals that have I guess the rap kind of spirit or energy, where he's ahead of the beat. He's not laying back, he's kind of pushing, he's doubling up, or they're double vocals to add emphasis. It has just a more of a live energy to it, and that kind of almost like rap rock delivery, but not, kind of walks that line where he doesn't go too far, where it just becomes a little silly. He sort of brings the energy of that with knowing, at least on this record, where to pull back. So, I kind of like some of the vocal ideas here too, as well, particularly on the first couple songs. They stand out a bit more vocally. So that's kind of what I heard that was working for me. What about you, Tim?
Well, let me start this with, some people might be surprised to know that an album and a band that I enjoyed in the 90s that is kind of been forgotten, but we're in this vein. We're in the rap rock vein before it turned into all metal and and very dark and stuff, but when it was still kind of fun. And that band was the Funk Junkies.
I was so hoping you were going to say Funk Junkies.
The second album, Injected, especially, is the one where I kind of went, oh, I like this. It's where they cover I Love It Loud by Kiss, but do it as like a hip hop rap metal song. It's totally goofy, but the goofiness works. You can tell they're just like having fun, and like I said, it's just before things got real dark with regards to rap rock and everything turning into like Korn and Limp Bizkit and not as fun. Yeah. And there were elements of this that reminded me of that band, as well as the obvious connections with Red Hot Chili Peppers. And Mike Patton is obviously an influence on it. I mean, when I hear like the chorus to Therapy, that could have easily been a Mike Patton chorus. The way his delivery, the like pinched navel delivery of that song has a Mike Patton sound when Mike Patton sings that way. But I was a little surprised, like, you know, there's the stuff like that in Purekiller and stuff that's like, okay, rap rock, you know, I totally get it. But then they took some turns. Like Sanity was one where I was on board for like a good 85% of that song. It's not what I was expecting from this band. I didn't know that they could pull off that relaxed vibe. That it sounds like a chill, somewhere between like a chill Alice in Chains song and when Metallica covered Turn the Page. Like it's just got this like, you know what I mean? It's just got this like vibe. Like there's a slight, not Southern vibe, but I don't know what it is. But there's a vibe to that song. The only part where it gets off to me is like he gets a little does the grunge vocal, the thing that Eddie Vedder gets criticized for. It's only in the chorus part.
My last note on that song is just 4 R's, 2 G's, 5 R's, 3 A's, and 5 R's. So,
there's a lot of that, like down in the bottom of jaw.
Yarling, as we would.
Yeah, yarling is a So I was surprised. Like I thought, well, the name right away. I was like, "Oof, Defryme. I know what's happening here. Like you're not going to fool me."
I thought it was when I first started listening to the record. I thought it was Defryme. And then after I listened to the record, I was like, oh, it's Defryme.
Defry me. There you go. So I did like that energy. I liked the energy of the up-tempo stuff that had a funk swing, metal, hard rock sound that had movement. And yes, some of the riffs are not like groundbreaking, but it's all done pretty well. I mean, everything, they don't go really long on most of these songs, and they don't put in like a lot of, there's not like minute long intros or anything like that. Like they get to the point and they do some pretty interesting stuff on some of the tracks with regards to the vocal hooks and whatnot. Like I remembered a number of these songs aside from the core or the cover, because I already obviously knew the cover, but no, there was a lot of hooks that stayed with me throughout the record. Gavin, what works best for you on this record?
I think the thing that works the best is that no matter whether you like what they do or you don't, or you like their sound or you don't like their sound, what they do, they do well. So they're tight. They're good at their sound. They're good at being Defryme, basically. One of my notes was, is this a bunch of session musicians who were put together to go behind Quinn? But then when I looked it up, no, they were around for quite a while. Because like you've both said, we don't have the flourishes. There's no guitar solos. I mean, even riffs it's more chords. You know, one of the things that really drew me to them was obviously they're a local band. I could go and see this in a room of 50 people, and they were a ball-tearing live band. Unlike a lot of Australian performers around the time, Quinn wants to be a rock star. So he puts on a show, whereas most of our guys are more inclined to almost be embarrassed by that. So, there's not much dressing up, and this probably is also where the Chili Peppers things comes from. He's got, the long hair with the shaved sides and the tattoos and stuff, which in 93 was unusual. It was, he looked a lot like Ketis, which is probably more where that comparison comes in than any actual singing. But yeah, and also if you remember at the time, so Faith No More have dropped by this time, but so we're in between Faith No More albums at this point, especially when these songs are written. Music just wasn't like nowadays. It's you hear something you like and you can go and find 100 versions of it. In that time, you hear the real thing and you go, oh, wow. And so what else sounds like this? And then all of a sudden you come across this and you're like, okay, this is cool. I guess I'm just saying that back in the day, it was harder to get your hands on this kind of music. So this was still in the different category, whereas in today's music, now that we're, many, many years past that, it sounds derivative. But it's when you look at the age of the songs, this is actually more on the beginnings of that sound side than it is on the derivative side.
Right. Yeah, I could totally see, if you were a high school kid or, in college and were really into Faith No More and maybe Living Color, a couple bands like that in like 89, 90, 91. There's not a lot else along those lines that if that's like the sound that you're into, this can be easily, found on like major label. I mean, obviously there's like indie stuff and whatnot, but if this came along like 2 years later, somehow had gotten released in the United States, like I could totally see this being in the same ballpark as those bands. And like I mentioned with the Funk Junkies, I mean, there's stuff that reminded me of Big Ass Truck on this. I think the Chili Peppers is more the vibe. Obviously, it's not a slappy bass that the Chili Peppers have. And honestly, a lot of it wasn't what I would think of as like this reminded me more of like Red Hot Minute Chili Peppers with Navarro. When they did a little bit more like hard rock stuff on some of those songs, and it wasn't the stuff that they would do with Frusciante that's much more eclectic and jazzy. There's no like scar tissue on here.
I thought Therapy was the most, Chili Peppers like song on here.
Yeah, especially the verses. Just in terms of the cadence, there was some similarity in his like vocal cadence.
Yep.
What didn't work for you, Jay?
I don't like that song. I don't like you were saying about Brass Monkey. I'm with you. Like I like half of that song, and then I start to pick up on all of the vocal affectation, like all the extra unnecessary things being added, the extra yarling and sounds, and it's very typical 90s style singing that turns me off. Don't love the Mama Said Knock You Out cover. Just this song I just never need to hear covered again.
RC Mob, Royal Crescent Mob from here in Columbus also covered it. God bless them. Great band. I don't like their cover either. That to me is a very difficult song to cover. The only version I've ever heard that was performed by a band that I ever thought was good is when LL Cool J did it at MTV Unplugged with a live band. And like, they were able to interpret it as that live band the only way that I've ever heard. I don't know. It's got to be like a raucous kind of vibe. Like this almost felt like too constrained in some ways.
Yeah, so I don't love like when they get too funky, like I said, or do something like that, it gets a little silly. Like it becomes almost too fun to the point where like I'm checking out. When they get to, I guess, somber and mid-tempo-y, his vocal struggles, because then he goes into like this kind of drony yarly thing that really doesn't deliver a melody for me. A good example is a song like Yeah, where it's got this really interesting melodic guitar riff and kind of this gritty tone. It almost has a feel like an extreme song, but then vocally it's just nothing going on. It just sounds like half baked. Gunn is another example where musically I like what's going on there. It has that weird, like I mentioned earlier, octave effect, and it's a little freaky and noisy. And it's a cool way to kind of bring in the funk style playing, but take it to this other weird place. Some interesting keyboards on that song, which is vocally, it's just not very compelling. So, in the last song, it's the same thing where, it's basically a ballad, I guess, right? And vocally is just not a great melody. So you end up with kind of this, bed of music that's ballad like, but doesn't really deliver lyrically or vocally. So while I like some of the energy on the early, almost like the rap style vocal, I don't like when it gets a little too funky, because then it just gets a bit silly. And I don't like when it slows down and gets drony, because then it's just not hooky at all. There's this fine line of when he's working vocally and when he's not. He's got a ton of style or range and styles that he can cover. I just don't like, 2/3 of them.
What do you think of Rivers?
That's my favorite song on the album.
Yeah, I thought that was
that's the best place for them to be. Like this super cool like drum feel, and then they layer in these blasting guitar riffs. I think the vocal melody is good enough. It's got some interesting textures. It just sounds unique, and it's all built around this just a cool drum groove. And I think that is when, to me, like, okay, this is working. It sounds unique. It's taking advantage of what talents they have. So that song worked well for me.
Yeah, I agree. I thought that was, of the songs I would say are like the most are the straightforward sort of rock songs.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one that absolutely works best. Whereas you mentioned like, yeah, there's some really cool music stuff there, but it just doesn't get anywhere with the chorus that's particularly interesting or original. And I agree with you on Gunn as well. That one had some cool musical ideas, but it didn't like coalesce for me. Yeah, and then there are just like there are sometimes there's individual choices where it's just like he affects his voice just a little bit too much in some parts, and I'm like, calm it down. Just
yeah.
Like you got to decide if you're gonna go full tilt with it. Like, got to go even farther then, because some of the rock stuff is like laid back in comparison. It's like you can't take a song off then if you're going to present this persona on each track. But when he's doing it well, it really works for me. It just didn't get the melodies where they needed to be to make all of the songs as really strong. I think that's what like Phil was commenting on, is they sounded like the recording is, what do you say? The songs are performed well. The songs are just not very good. I don't know if they're not very good or they're just like, they're not fine-tuned enough in certain places with regards to the vocal. I could see why that would be a problem with a guy who's clearly the only person in the band that matters. And it's hard to tell that guy, you need to work on your vocal a little harder. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if he's the one running the show, sometimes those are the ones with the egos that can't take that sort of criticism. Or I don't, who produced this?
It feels like there's a lot of attention put on like performance and style and not necessarily on getting the songs to the next level. Right? It's like, get like the energy right and get the style, like pull in all these cool styles that they're inspired by, but like not enough attention on, hey, let's hone this song a little bit more and make a super catchy chorus and like make this work a little better.
So the guy who produced this, Paul Annison, this was like his first job. He's got a couple other tracks before this, but Defryme was like the first big band for him. And then he went on to work with a lot of bands I don't recognize the name of. Oh, he worked with The Living End on a song. But a lot of this stuff, no idea who these bands are. Color Fast, Vantage, Rocket Science.
Rocket Science are good.
Are they? Okay. Oh, there's Molar. We know them.
Mm-hmm.
Young Revelry, Black Cab. Those ring a bell? No? All right. Gavin, what doesn't work for you on the record?
For me, I think what doesn't work is probably mainly the lyrics. I'm completely on board, with the good band, well played, not necessarily great songs, and not necessarily great lyrics. But I do think it's particularly if you haven't heard it before. So I think nostalgia can sort of patch over a few of these criticisms. But I think being a 40-year-old, or in our 40s for most of the audience here, and listening to lyrics written by 20-year-olds, and it's the first time you've heard them, they're rarely going to sound like the work of a genius. And so I think a lot of the time they don't necessarily age well. I think even if you just run through the list of song titles, and we've got, you've got Therapy, you've got Sanity. We're very 90s song titles about being sad. I mean, even which one even opens with what's the matter? What the fuck have I done wrong now? And it's like, oh, come on, that's a terrible way to open a song.
What's the matter? What the fuck I done wrong now? Feeling shattered. I'll pick me up somehow. All I know is I want you to go now. Yeah. All I know is I need you to stay. All along, what I needed most was your sanity. All along, what I hated most was your sanity. What's the matter?
I think that's Insanity, because he drops the F-bomb in the first lyric of Sanity.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah, that's borderline. That's sort of where Korn got to. Yeah, just cheer up. This is, you're fine. So they're probably my major issues with it. Unlike you guys, for me, Mama Said Knock You Out. That's. I heard that version first. So when I go back and hear the LL Cool J bit, the version, and which I did rush out and buy because I loved this version of it, it feels empty because there's no music behind it. But I also have a criticism of that song, which is and it's one of my biggest criticisms of any kind of music, is they pull the full talent show / pantomime ending of like winding the music up and then going out with the chorus. Like he actually finishes with "Mama said knock you out" now and done. And you go, oh, geez, that's when you have a talent show and somebody gets like a minute 30 to perform a hit that's on the radio, they always finish it that way.
Right.
It's that
abrupt
cool.
ending.
Yeah, and just remind you what we were singing. There's also an interlude in the middle of that, which probably means nothing to you guys either, which is they go to a bit of the Master's Apprentices. That's the "Do what you want to do, be what you want to be." Yeah, that's in the middle of that song.
Well, I noticed that was in there, but I didn't know what it was.
Yeah, exactly. So that's that's a band called the Master's Apprentices, and that's a big song here. It's Because I Love You. That's so for Australians that probably helps us to key into it because that's actually a familiar part of the song. So I think that was a deliberate way to try and get some radio attention out of this. So they did South by Southwest in '94 apparently. I would have loved to have seen how they went over at that to see what a '94 American crowd who are almost certainly haven't heard this band.
Yeah.
But probably if you're going to watch them, you're almost certainly the kind of person who seeks something new. To see whether they went over well or whether they didn't. I would imagine it went over pretty well. The other thing is that this hit number 3 in Australia, this album, despite the fact that no one can buy it, no one's ever heard it. Yeah, it went to number 3 on debut.
That's crazy. Yeah, it didn't do bad in terms of the singles charted. The album did well. God Inside a Man charted at number 51. Purekiller charted at 70. Mama Said Knock You Out charted at 38. Sanity at 70. So I mean they had 5, top 100 singles off this, which I gotta imagine that did okay for them in terms of. I mean, none of them are like top 10, but that's not bad.
It would have been interesting to see what would have happened with the second album had it eventuated.
Do you know anything about why they just immediately disappeared?
No, I don't. Like I say, I'm pretty sure Quinn went on to head in a more electronic direction.
He did. I found it. From 98 to 2007, he was releasing music under the name Propaganda Clan.
Okay, there you go.
That's that's a name that he used.
Yeah.
And he also has a band. What was it called? The Black Skeleton?
Yeah, the Black Skeleton, which is a more straight up and down rock band. I would imagine if anybody actually got wind of them, they'd fit into FM radio pretty easily at the moment. That was, I've only discovered that recently, but I think that's a pretty simple listen, and I think it's probably a better use of him. He essentially plays the same character, though, when in the film clips he's still got the same, hair things going on and makeup and outfits. So.
Yeah, he's much more made up now on like their Facebook page. Just like black makeup streaming down his face and like some sort of like goth Danzig thing going on. I'm not sure what it is exactly.
The Crow, perhaps?
Or The Crow, yeah. Man, people really love that movie. Is okay. Yes, it's got a good soundtrack, and I know Jason Lee died, but it's an okay movie, people. We don't have to dedicate our lives to The Crow.
I actually rewatched it recently. It's one of the more illogical movies. Like there's the bit where they're trying to kill him, and one of them goes, "Oh, well, we can't kill him because his power's from that crow over there," which is a very strange leap to make when there's no apparent reason for,
Did the guy standing next to him go, what are you talking about?
No, he's like, "You're an absolute genius. Let's shoot the crow."
Oh my God.
And there was no real reason why for the conflict in the first place. and no real. It's just a bunch of things that happened, and you just have to go, okay, that happened. We're not going to explain it.
Yeah. Well, the people who are members of our Patreon community and are on our Discord, maybe they would want to discuss The Crow, because we have a very fervent movie discussion group when it comes to 90s movies. I didn't realize there was so much disdain for Clueless. There's a lot of people who do not like Clueless.
Really?
And I just never considered it that offensive. I thought it was kind of goofy and fun. It was not my favorite teen movie of the 90s, but
yeah,
I think it's watchable. I mean, it's no Can't Hardly Wait, but it can't all be Can't Hardly Wait.
True. Very true.
All right.
What about what was the Keanu Reeves movie that was named after a sound, Feeling Minnesota?
Oh,
they made a movie out of a Soundgarden lyric.
Yeah, that's not good. It's one of those like very introspective, dopey indie films that I think Ewan McGregor's in that too.
Cameron Diaz is in it, I think.
Yeah, it has a good cast, but no. All right, we got to get to ratings on this record. We'll talk about our poll from Patreon after we vote. Jay, worthy album, better EP, or decent single?
I'm going to squeak out an EP here. I think Rivers and God Inside a Man are my two favorite songs. And then after that, Purekiller and Brass Monkey would be my EP. Where are you at, Tim?
I have a couple more. So I would go Purekiller, Brass Monkey. I like Therapy. I like Rivers. And God Inside a Man. If I could get him to re-record the vocals, I would include Sanity, or if we could make an instrumental track. So I guess I'm at 5 out of the 10 tracks. So that's half. It's not bad. If you had just told me the name of the band and said you're gonna like 5 of these songs, I would have been like, yeah, we'll see, buddy. But this kind of lined up with our Patreon community. Gavin, you did not get to vote. You mentioned that. So this is just of the not just forgot. It's all right. It's your pick. You don't have to vote. It was 50-50 better EP and decent single. This is the first time in a while we haven't had anybody vote for worthy album. So congrats. I don't know. It was polarizing. And I'm curious to see what people say when this episode comes out on the Discord, because there's always a little bit of discussion when a new episode drops on the Discord. Oh, what did the two idiots think? And what did Tim mispronounce in this episode?
Defryme and Melbourne.
Yes, there we go. Defryme and Melbourne. That's my terrible pronunciation. Gavin, is this a worthy album for you?
Yeah, this is a worthy album for me. I wasn't expecting anyone else to jump on board with that. Unlike other people who seem to want to make sure that you guys like it. My mission here, my personal mission here, is to just bring a greater awareness to bands that did exist, because these are the bands that caused us to hear other things that you do like. You know, most of the things I suggest tend to be towards the earlier of the 90s, so a lot of them are a bit more confused. This is quite a 90s story again, in that that kind of rose fairly swiftly, got a big deal, had a number 3 record, and then poof, they're gone, disappeared onto something else. So, but yeah, for me, I'm locked and loaded on a worthy album. I would have loved to have seen, had this been big, had this been a massive album, would the last song, Sweeter Shelter, and I know I agree with your criticisms of that, but I could absolutely see that being like the ballad on FM radio that people just sing along to in the same way as More Than Words, or what's the Mr. Big one that everyone
To Be With
got
You
on board with? Yeah, that I could see it being like that had they have been a big band, because then that would have been the key for the rest of the audience to get involved in, because there's nothing to keep you out basically. But that never happened.
I could totally have seen myself in '93 being into this, because it does feel like at that time it would have been pretty novel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's not a lot of, like you had talked about earlier, Tim, not a lot of bands were doing this type of thing yet. And I think the
Particularly
performances
in Melbourne.
alone would have been pretty fun. So
Yeah. Well, I like when you pick these albums that are on no streaming services and have no reviews on the internet, because they're always going to be something interesting. It's not going to be boring.
Even the album art is like a photo that's like of the CD cover that's got wrinkles in it and smudges on it.
Couldn't find a really good album cover picture, so it's a picture of a picture basically.
Right.
I was going to try and just
not a scan.
Just because nobody's ever seen that cover, no one from this podcast, I was going to try and claim that's me. But, might have been a bit far-fetched.
Well, I'm trying to do the math.
It's an old photo.
You would either be way too young or way too old. I don't know, but something would be off. I don't know what it would be. But time's different down in Australia, anyways. They're on a whole, it works in a whole different direction. This is, of course, your first visit of the year. There'll be a couple more. One will be for another pick like this, and then you'll also be doing an 80s episode, which we did last year. Was the Angels double live album, which Jay and I were quite concerned going in that we were going to be reviewing a double live album of a band we'd never heard. We ended up loving it. And I ended up finding in here in the States, they're called Angel City. I ended up finding an Angel City record in a dollar bin not too long ago. And it's perfectly in mint condition. And just that band did not catch on here.
Mm-mm.
So I'm glad to grab a record for cheap. So I'm looking forward, and Jay and I are both looking forward to your 80s pick this year, and the direction that you'll head for that one. We'll be doing that probably in a couple months, and then the second pick. I forgot if you did you make your second pick yet, or are you still contemplating your second 90s pick?
No, I've made it. It's
But don't spoil it.
It's as obscure as this.
Okay. Well,
but easier to find.
We'll tease that one down the road. But thanks for coming. What time is it? It's like Thursday at like lunchtime there?
Yeah, 11 a.m. we started, yeah.
Okay. It's so weird. It never ceases to amaze me that you live in the future. That's the coolest thing.
I had to work from home today to do this.
You do not normally work from home?
Nah, not normally. I can, but not normally.
Well, why would you not? If you could choose to, you should just work from home all the time. It's just do you like going into an office?
That's engineering, so there's a lot of hands-on stuff.
So
gotcha. I might tend to have to go in anyway.
You just FaceTime in. Just tell them just have them hold it up to things and tell them what to do. You get an intern for that. Thanks for spending some of your Thursday work from home with us, and we'll talk to you in a couple months. And besides on the Discord.
Yep.
Which, by the way, Discord, I want to remind people, you go to patreon.com. That's where you sign up for Patreon. DMO Union, Dig Me Out Union. That's where the union meets, votes on albums, such as our monthly picks that are sent in via our website. Every month, 9 new albums selected by our patrons. And every month, also roundtables. We've got Chip Midnight doing interviews. We're going to hit 600 way faster than we anticipated this year. We're going to hit our 600th episode, Jay. And I don't know what the anniversary is for 600.
We've been talking about anniversaries. I think the one we really need to think about is episode 666.
Oh my goodness. You're right.
What's the most evil record? of the
Spice
90s?
Girls, Spice World. I mean, we have to be contrarian about it,
Satan
right?
approved.
We can't do the obvious thing and do like a death metal album. We have to do
Right.
something like Aqua or
Barbie girl.
yeah. Or when did Ricky Martin's Livin' La Vida Loca come out?
I don't know, but I'm pretty sure it's satanic.
See? We should just do a round table, the most satanic music of the 90s.
Mm. Yeah, because in
And
the 80s we had the satanic panic.
right.
In the 90s it all kind of died down. I mean, Satanism was at an all-time low.
It was. Hey, if you think about it, Satan's not the bad guy. He doesn't kill all those people.
Right.
They all get sent to him. And he's like, this is my job. I'm sorry. And he punishes bad people. How is Satan the bad guy in this situation?
Amen.
You hired him to punish bad people, and that's what he is doing. It sounds like your job is the problem, not that Satan was doing anything wrong. All
You're
right.
making sense. Do you have a Substack?
I do have a Substack. It's called Satan Got Screwed at Substack.
I'm going to subscribe right now.
Go ahead and subscribe. Also, subscribe to our newsletter, The Box. Look at how cleanly I transitioned from that. Boom. Every week it goes out with new reviews of music, movies, TV shows, books, newly released from artists relevant to the 80s and 90s, as well as our weekly release calendar so you can see what's coming out. And then, of course, if you like what you're hearing, head on over to applepodcasts.com. That's where you can go to leave us some positive feedback. Jay, was there anything new in Apple Podcasts that is going on for us?
Not yet. We'll have something to announce there soon.
Okay. Announcement coming soon. Something
still working on it.
special from the Jay toolbox of various internet things that I don't know how he comes up with them, but he's just like, I'm doing this. And I'm like, okay, dude, do it. Go. Good luck.
I'm over here turning knobs.
You are. You're like
Turning
mad-
knobs and typing in ones and zeros.
Mad professor over there. Got the whole thing. You got Web 3. We're already on Web 4. That's how far ahead we are. We're Web 4 here.
Oh, man. I don't know about that. We
All
can
right.
barely stream. Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
It's true. It's true. The only thing we're streaming on is an AIM account from 2003. That's it. All right. For Jay, I'm Tim. We're out. We'll be back next week with another episode of Dig Me Out.